You already know what it is. We back in this bitch. I'ma just hop into it right away. As far as new music goes, I'm just gonna say I haven't heard a whole lot of new music. I know Big Sean dropped an album. I just I just could not find the will to actually listen to it. And I know ASAP Rocky dropped think it was 3 singles. I kind of want to wait till the actual album comes out to actually hear it. But as far as new music goes, the only real new music that I've actually listened to, actually the album actually came out on my birthday. Bro literally called me up and said, yo, so my doctor, I won't say what he is, but
it was a Jewish doctor.
He told me to drop the album on your birthday. And all I just said was, all right, bet, just whatever you do, don't be ass this time around. Because as far as like my whole thoughts when it came to Vultures 1 that came out earlier this year, I really was not a fan of it. The more I just listened to it, the more I just realized like how much it is actually his worst album. When it came to at least Kanye West, I will say Dolla shocked me with that album. He is the best part about Vultures 1. He has the best performances overall. And when it comes to someone like Kanye West, I'm all about him innovating and I'm all for him, having a different kind of style when it came to the music. But this time around, I was just like, no. I mean, when it came to those, high-pitched vocals or that Roxanne interpolation on Paid, and that mixed in with all those anti-Semitic bars, like, it kind of ruined the actual experience for me. There are some songs on there that I do like. I just don't like Kanye West on those songs. I don't like Kanye West on pretty much any of the songs. Vultures 2, it came out. I stayed up and I heard it when it dropped, and I was pleasantly surprised by a couple of things. Number one being how unfinished the album actually felt. Whether if that would be like the mixing on the album or just even a lot of mumbling when it came to verses. My biggest problem when it comes to like unreleased Kanye West songs that do leak, for example, Future Sounds. I really didn't care for Future Sound, and the part that I really could not stand on that first leak was that Kanye West was essentially mumbling his verse. And I'm okay with that because it's unfinished. But when we get a finished product and it sounds unfinished, that's a problem for me. 530 would be one of Kanye West's greatest songs ever if he just did not mumble on that shit. Now, granted, I haven't heard every song since it got updated. The other reason why I was pleasantly surprised is because I actually found myself enjoying the album more than I did Vultures 1. There were many songs on that album that I actually genuinely liked. And as far as I'm aware, no sign of any anti-Semitic bars. I'm a big fan of songs like Promotion, Dead, River with Young Thug. I also like Forever Rolling with Lil Baby. But of course, the song that I've been listening to the most, and the song that I've actually that I think has actually became the most popular out of the batch has been Field Trip. And I did hear the song when it did leak. I will say getting Lil Durk's verse swapped with Kodak Black's verse actually was the best decision. Kanye West doing a little bit of Dolla verse also felt alright. I think Don Toliver has a nice hook on it. It's okay, it's not bad. But of course, the main reason why everybody loves this song and the main reason why I love this song is for Playboi Carti. Man, I'm so fucking hyped for his new album because I gotta say, out of every single like deep voice Carti feature that he's done, I gotta say this is probably his best one. He's probably the best feature on the entire album. That unless like Kanye West decides to drop the Bomb remix with Miles. And then as far as like any other new releases, I mean this isn't a new release, but Travis Scott did re-release Days Before Rodeo. I'm happy to see it finally on streaming services. And no, I'm not going to talk about drugs. You should try it. Just every time I listen to that song, I just can't help but think like Kid Cudi could have done that better. ASAP Rocky could have done that better. And again, not a bad song, but just not my favorite. My favorite song off that mixtape, though, has got to be Mamacita. And I'm not just saying that because Rich Homie Quan passed away, you know, R.I.P. Rich Homie Quan. It's one of my favorite Travis Scott songs ever. You can go to every single one of their performances, you know, whether that be Travis, Young Thug, or Rich Homie Quan. I think they genuinely are really great on here. I don't know, it kind of reminds me of like Three-Headed Goat, but like Three-Headed Goat came out after Mamacita. But I mean, what sells this song is that sample. I mean, the guitar alone, that whole guitar, just whenever you hear it, it's just like a fucking sound wave, fuels you up with energy every time. And speaking of A$AP Rocky, though, I did re-listen to every A$AP Rocky project recently, just because I was trying to get in preparation for Don't Be Dumb, but like, you know, then the motherfucker didn't even drop the album. At least when I was re-listening to all those albums, I was shocked, for one, of how I actually enjoyed Testing when I re-listened to it. I don't get the hate that album gets, because that album is actually great. My favorite A$AP Rocky project is At Long Last A$AP. And I don't know if this is my favorite A$AP Rocky song, but it's definitely my favorite song on the album, which is Electric Body. To me, that song is like just essentially how I feel about the whole project. I think my biggest problem with Long Live A$AP was that it tried really hard to be that balance of like, let's have bangers, but also get a little mixed in with like what made Live Love A$AP so special, with that psychedelic stoner rap. But I found that with Long Live A$AP, the bangers didn't really mesh well together with those psychedelic tracks for an actual album. On this album, I think they genuinely do, and at least and I think there's a lot more bangers this time around to actually have that fine balance. And then on top of that too, with just the dark instrumentals, you know, kind of, you know, being a part of every song. I think that's what makes you know, At Long Last A$AP great for me. And that's essentially how I feel with this song as well. I mean, this song is a fucking banger, you know, right away when you get that, you know, A$AP Rocky verse, and then you get into Schoolboy Q's verse, which actually, I'll say this, after re-listening to all those projects, I feel like not a lot of people talk about how great of a duo A$AP Rocky and Schoolboy Q are. And then once you get to the very end of that song, it's so angelic, and it takes you to a whole nother fucking dimension when you get to the end of that song. And speaking of Schoolboy Q, I don't know why, but I've just been listening to Collard Greens recently. Yeah, I've just been listening to it a lot ever since the pop out. Schoolboy Q is great on that song. Kendrick Lamar, I think this might be my favorite Kendrick Lamar feature that he's done. It's hard to tell. Again, what sells this track, much like Mamacita, is the instrumental. And that instrumental, like, it is the most bouncy instrumental I've ever heard in my life. I don't know what it is about that song, but it is so bouncy. I think it's those 808s. Also, it is embarrassing how it took me like years to realize that the vine of the dude dancing, you know, that vine right there, I did not realize that the instrumental that he is dancing to is Collard Greens. I mean, that instrumental is so iconic on its own, just for how great of a song that is and how big of a hit Collard Greens was, and I didn't even put two and two together for some reason. Speaking of not noticing shit, this one's actually a little more understandable. The song Right Now by Uncle Murda, I have been listening to that recently. I like Uncle Murda on the song. I like Metro Boomin on the beat. And yeah, I do like Future as a feature on here. I didn't figure this out so recently that Metro Boomin's most iconic producer tag is actually from this song. It's such an iconic line, and then, you know, hearing it in this song, yo, Metro, don't trust you, I'm gonna shoot you. Like, I love the take that's used for the actual producer tag, and I think I love the take that's for the actual song. They both work on their own. On the topic of Future as well, I do want to talk about Never Stop for a little bit. And I will say that's probably been the song that I've been listening to the most for like the past week or two. For one, I mean, I'll say this. As an intro to The Wizard, I think it is a great intro. Sure, it's not as great as, you know, Thought It Was a Drought or We Don't Trust You or My Collection, but it's up there. Definitely one of his most underrated songs, I'll say. The thing I love about Future is part of his beat selection, of how almost every Future song, you feel like you're walking into a cloud of smoke. But the main reason why I've been listening to the song so much, quite recently, you know, I had been going through a bit of a falling out with, you know, someone, and essentially, you know, just shit led to one another, you know. I just had a bit of a falling out with them, and to where I started getting into a bit of a depressive episode, and I did a lot of overthinking around this time. But yeah, I don't have any issues or any, you know, grudges against him. However, there was a day where I, you know, towards the end of this whole thing, where I was trying to do something nice. I was trying to do something, you know, really kind, trying to be the better man in the situation. So I was trying to get some information so I could do this good deed. And I ended up asking the wrong person. And what I mean by that is I asked someone that I probably shouldn't have. And one thing led to another, to where I didn't necessarily get the information. And it almost got to a point where this person was trying to almost like provoke me into feeling a certain way about this whole situation. Like I said, I don't have any beefs with you know, the people that I had a falling out with. I don't have any grudges. But this person kept trying to paint that picture that I did, and just kept, you know, pushing me. And I just kept saying like, yo, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it, period. And then their response, after I kept saying that I just don't want to talk about it, was to essentially call me a dickhead, and that I'm a terrible friend, and that I should just go fuck myself, essentially. Which I will say, I did laugh at first when I read it, and I pretty much just told them to, you know, fuck off. I pretty much just said, have a good day, left it at that. And I got a little sad, because everything that I had been overthinking at that point in time, I felt like all of that was true. But I digressed. There is a point to this whole story. Like I said, over the past couple weeks, you know, I had been listening to it. But when I first started to re-listen to it, I literally just had it in my playlist. I pressed shuffle. It was a song that came on. And, you know, I will say I love the message about the song of just don't give up. You know, the song's called Never Stop. And while I can't relate to everything that Future's talking about on here, I related to some of it. That's not even the main reason why. The main reason I did keep listening to it was just that there's a line at the very end of that song where he says, "You should never give up on me without hearing my side of the story." That is a line that at first when I heard it, I had to hear it again. And when I heard it again, I paused the song, and I won't say I cried, but I got very emotional when I heard it, because it was pretty much just what I had been thinking at that point in time. And I didn't even know how to like put it into like actual words, or to actually like really say that, you know. I didn't really know what to, you know, what or how else to describe it. I couldn't get that line out of my head like the rest of the day. The next day, ironically, I went on Twitter, and I saw like 20 accounts posting that same line, where it was of the Genius screenshot. And I'm not gonna say that it, you know, was a sign or anything, but it definitely felt very convenient how it's the kind of message that I needed to hear. And I keep getting that message throughout that time. On a brighter note though, but yeah, this past week I did get to go see Childish Gambino perform live, and I will say it was amazing. And I know it sounds like I'm glazing this man on every single fucking video, but genuinely, this was probably one of the best concerts I've ever been to. I did enjoy every song that he, you know, performed. As well, there were songs that just I was not expecting to hear. I was not expecting him to perform Earn. I was not expecting him to perform, you know, Crawl. But it was so great hearing so many of my favorite songs from him actually being performed. I really enjoyed seeing him perform Human Sacrifice, Witchy, both songs I've talked about on here. Yoshinoya is another one. Of course, Lithonia. I also really enjoyed seeing him perform Sober. This Is America was also really good. Redbone was, oh my gosh, Redbone was so great hearing live. And then, of course, you know, getting to hear him perform my favorite song of all time. You know, I've talked about 3005 to death by so many people, but that was probably my favorite performance the entire show. But as far as like what performance I think was probably the best, again, not my favorite, but it is definitely the best one, would probably be Me and Your Mama. And there's a reason why that song was so fucking great to hear live, and it's so good to hear that song played every time I listen to it. And it's that intro. There's such a long build up to that intro, and every time it drops, it's fucking crazy, man. This song was just, oh man, what made that song so great to hear live was the fact there was an actual band. And I'm not that big of a fan of when rappers use bands to actually, you know, perform, you know, their songs. I do think that with Gambino, he did use the band, like, not for every song. And I think for Me and Your Mama, that was a song where you needed that band, and oh my gosh, the band fucking killed it. And I'll also say the band also killed it when he performed No Excuses. But of course, Gambino's vocals, you know, just throughout that song, like, oh my gosh, it's so fucking great. But yeah, if you're debating on if you should go or if, you know, you have the time, I would highly recommend it. And yeah, as well as merch goes, you know, I got a t-shirt, I got a bucket hat, and I got this hoodie. I was literally drenched from the rain right before the performance. So I literally had to take off what I had on top, and I just put on this hoodie, and oh my gosh, this thing is so fucking soft. As far as like other albums go, I think I talk about this like every time I do one of these videos. As far as other albums do go, I don't think we're getting VULTURES 3, you know. I don't think we're going to be getting a solo gay album. But I do hope he is off the laughing gas and actually is in a better place now to be releasing music. I know there's dates floating around of Playboy Cardi dropping I Am Music. I know there's dates floating around of Future dropping mixtape Pluto. Again, I mentioned A$AP Rocky with Don't Be Dumb. And then Baby Keem with Raised by Wolves. Dude, I need a new Baby Keem album really bad. But yeah, that's about it.
Come on, 2 more. Just like that. You ready? Exactly.
That's a lovely, lovely voice.